Hi, I'm Professor Martin, and today we are going to talk about the levels of education. There are 5 levels of education. We're going to go through each of the levels and what they mean. We're also going to talk about why we care. And that's where we're going to start. Why do we care what the different levels of education are? If you're just getting out of high school or you're brand new to college, you may not be concerned with anything past your one degree that you're kind of stepping into. But the thing is that we really should approach education with the end goal in mind, right? We don't want to get into the car if we don't know where the car is going. So what is your purpose with your education? How far do you need to go to get what you want? And that's why it's really important to know the levels of education. I work with a lot of students that don't realize that they may not actually be required to have a degree to get the career that they want. Or they might really soon after starting a degree totally give up because they didn't think it through all the way and they didn't realize that they would be required to spend the next 8 years or 10 years or 12 years at a university in order to get the career they want, plus time gaining experience in the field. These are all things that we want to consider now before we really make that big commitment. So then what are the levels? There are 5 levels of education, and we're going to go all the way from post-high school, and the first one you could actually do even before then, in some cases, even before you get out of high school, all the way to the absolute highest degree that anyone can get anywhere in the world. Okay, so our first one is a certificate. A certificate. All the other 4s are going to be a degree, but the first one is not a degree, it's just a certificate. So what sets a certificate apart from the degrees? Well, first, the fact that it's not a degree. So you don't get the prestige of saying, I have a degree, you have a certificate. But we don't want to look at certificates as inferior in any way. It's just a different kind of training. Certificates train you to do a particular profession or career or thing, and not one thing only. So if you wanted to become a lifeguard, let's say a lifeguard is your chosen career, that's really what your heart desires to do, you don't need particularly a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or any degree. You could simply get a certificate. Certificates, again, teach you only that one thing. So if you wanted to get a certificate in lifeguard, which is required in most states, you need to have some kind of formal training in the way of a certificate, right? You go through the training, you pass a number of exams. At the end, you take one big final exam, you pay a fee, you take some tests, and then you get your licensure. And that's how it works with many certificates, right? There are a lot of certificate programs, such as real estate agents typically go through a certificate program. Air traffic controllers, which was my very first big career certificate program. Now it was long. It was 2 years long. It was very long. Private investigators, often just a certificate. A lot of the beauty industry, cosmetology, certificate. Aesthetics, which is what I did when I first got out of the military, certificate training. There are so many certificate options out there. And for someone that doesn't do so great in school, or that doesn't have the money to get a full degree, or doesn't have the time, maybe you have a family to support, or you have aging parents to support, or you want to do this big trip around the world and you just are in a hurry to earn some money to save up for a while so that you can go, a certificate might be the way to go. Now, keep in mind that we're going in order, so it is the lowest considered level of formal education, but it is significantly better than nothing. Okay, certificates are also the cheapest. They're the cheapest way to go in many instances, and they're a lot faster most of the time, depending on how you go about getting it. Again, you're not going to have to study all the things required in a degree, so you won't have to study, if you want to become a lifeguard, you're not going to have to take likely math or science or any of the general education classes that you'd have to take to get a degree. You don't have to worry about those with most certificate programs. Now, where can you get a certificate? Many universities offer certificate programs, and they vary. Sometimes they work along the traditional fall and spring and summer semester schedules, so it might take a little bit longer, right? You do have to work within the normal traditional semester. And then you have independent companies that specialize in a particular thing, such as emergency medic, where you can go and you can get your training through them. You do it quickly. That's all they do. It's typically like an 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and within a couple weeks or a couple months, you're done. And it really just varies. So when I got my emergency medic certificate, I went through the University of California, UCLA, and it wasn't long. It was very fast. It was about a 2-week program, and it was through a university, but it did not go according to the traditional semester. It was very fast. It was 8 to 4, maybe 8 to 5 every day for a few weeks, and there were many exams. There was like an exam every day, every maybe 2 days, because it was a really accelerated program. You do your exams. At the end, you take one big giant exam. You show up to a testing facility. You pay your couple $100. You sit and you take a proctored written exam. And if you pass both the practical and the written and you've paid your fee, then your emergency medic license will come in the mail a couple weeks later. And then your ambulance certificate will come a couple weeks after that, and you're good. And I want to say my certificate for that was about $1,200, as opposed to getting a full maybe bachelor's degree, right, which is 4 years and way more than $1,200. And we'll go over the cost of education in another video, but as I consistently say, it is not a cheap endeavor to get education. So again, I personally have at least 20 certificates, like at least, and most of them I've gotten just because I really love to learn and the subjects just really fascinated me. So I got a certificate in it. I remember even when I was in law school, the summer after my second year, I wasn't eligible for summer school because I'd used up all of my summer eligible classes. And so I flew from San Diego to Wyoming. I want to say Wyoming, if I remember correctly, to take a CSI, like a crime scene investigator certificate course. And it was for several weeks, and it was with a bunch of police officers, and I showed up and I was the only one that didn't have a gun like strapped to my body. But it was so much fun. The textbook was like this big, like it was comparable to my law school textbooks. But that's how I spent my summer. And there's only a couple weeks in between for us, the end of the spring and the beginning of the fall. So I spent it with a bunch of police officers and investigators and detectives, learning how to do crime scene investigation. And I've never really used it. I mean, it helped me in my profession, in my legal profession, but it wasn't anything directly. It was just a passion and a hobby of mine. So if I stumble across a crime scene, like I could probably process it like a pro. So these are all just things you can do with a certificate training. And if you really start looking into it, you would be surprised at how many careers you can get into with just a certificate training. But now that we've gone over that, there's a lot of training that you could only get a certificate for, but you can also get a degree in it. And why would you go for the higher level of education if you don't particularly have to? Well, because you're going to want to get a job, and employers are typically going to hire the most qualified person. So if we know that a certificate is the lowest level of our 5 levels of education, if you have 2 otherwise equally qualified candidates and one has a certificate and one has any higher level of education, an employer is likely to go with the candidate that has the higher level of education, right? They've made that investment in themselves. The candidate has, right? They've invested in themselves. They've shown that they can stick through it. They've shown that they have all of these other skills that someone with a lower level of education just may not have, right? So extra knowledge, extra wisdom, maybe some extra experience. There's often internships and things that go along with getting degrees. So a certificate holder might not have those. Okay, so even if you could get a job that only requires a certificate, let's talk about the possibility of going up. Let's go from number 1, which is our certificate, to number 2, which is an associate's degree. This is the level of education that I am currently a professor with. Most of my students are associate degree students at a 2-year university. What does that mean? Essentially, an associate's degree is the lowest level degree, but it is essentially a half of a bachelor's degree. It's a half a bachelor's degree. What it does is it allows someone to go to a 2-year college instead of a 4-year college and to get a degree halfway through. You can do this a couple different ways, and an associate's degree, if you think you're going to continue on to get your 4-year degree, which is called a bachelor's degree, and that's our 3rd level of education, the difference is that, and the benefit is that you can go for 2 years and have an actual degree to show for it. Whereas if you start at a 4-year college and you only do 2 years, if you only do half it, and then for whatever reason you decide to walk away, you have no degree to show for it. Okay, again, we're going to talk about costs in another video, but one of the big benefits of going to a smaller 2-year college to get your associate's degree first is that it's going to be significantly cheaper. Generally, significantly cheaper. Most of your universities are government, they're public schools, so a lot of the funding is going to come through the government, and it's going to be a lot cheaper. There are many 4-year universities that are private. Of course, there are a lot of government 4-year universities too. All of your state schools are going to be government, but it's a lot more expensive. So you can start at a community college and get your associate's degree first, and then if you choose to move on, you can transfer, which a transfer is something that we will get into in a whole separate video, and then you can finish the rest of your 4-year degree. So of our 5 levels of education, we have our certificate, which is our first level, which again, you could possibly get while you're still a high schooler. I know there are a lot of lifeguards that lifeguard in the summer while they're still in high school. As long as the certificate program itself and the state laws don't prohibit you from doing that while you're a minor, while you're under the legal age of being a legal adult, then it's totally acceptable. So if you are 15 or 16 or 17 and you want to do a certificate training for being a lifeguard, go for it. If you can afford it, go for it. There are a couple schools in the area that I work in that even offer free training. So they'll give you the education, they'll give you the certificate program for free, and then you work for them for a certain number of months afterwards to essentially pay it back. So you essentially volunteer for them, but you get the training completely for free, which is such a bargain. So if it's possible, go for it. A certificate is our number 1. The second is an associate's degree. So an associate's degree is the lowest level of degree holder. So when you go to apply for your job, when you're ready and the application asks, do you have a degree? If you have an associate's degree, even though it is the lowest, you can click the box yes. You can check yes that you have a degree. Again, if you started a 4-year university and you have completed 2 years of training and you're asked if you have a degree, you don't yet have a degree, right? Only if you actually go through the process of getting an associate's degree can you earn that. And those are likely done at smaller 2-year colleges. Okay. We've covered certificate training, we've covered associate's degrees. Next, we've already touched on it a little, but is our bachelor's degree. A bachelor's degree is number 3. A bachelor's degree is again the second half of an associate's degree if you go that way. And a bachelor's degree is essentially the lowest level of management training. If you want a job and you want to become a manager, typically it's going to require a bachelor's degree. Anything lower than a bachelor's degree it's nice, but you're still probably going to be an entry-level worker. you're probably not going to be given supervisory responsibilities, and you're likely not going to be very competitive when it comes to pay. You're just going to be able to qualify to get yourself in the door. But we want to do the best we can. We want to get paid the most we can. We want to excel and exceed in every way. We want to be supervisors. We want that responsibility. We want promotions. All of this comes with a bachelor's degree. So I would encourage you, if you're open to it, to set your goal at a minimum of getting a bachelor's degree. So if you're working on, or if you're about to start an associate's degree, work it out, at least play with the idea, and give it some thought of continuing on to get your 4-year degree, which is your bachelor's degree. Okay, so what comes after a bachelor's degree? So we have a certificate, an associate's, a bachelor's. Next is your master's. Number 4 is your master's degree. Our master's degree holders are typically the upper level managers. The master's degree is the point at which you can start doing a lot of jobs that the average person isn't going to qualify to get. They don't have the knowledge, they don't have the skills, they don't have the training to do it. Your master's degree holders are going to be your CEOs, your CFOs, your heads of companies, your top level managers. Most of the time, those are going to be your master's degree holders. To be a teacher at any college, right? Anything beyond high school, a minimum degree requirement is going to be a master's degree. The next degree up is always preferred and sometimes required, but it's going to be a minimum of a master's degree. By the time you have your master's degree, you're generally considered a pretty intelligent person. You know a lot, you've experienced a lot, you have generally a lot of maturity, right? So a master's degree. When would you continue on to a master's degree? Well, a lot of times it's going to be career dependent, right? Is your chosen career going to require a master's degree, or is it maybe going to require a master's degree if you want to be promoted? Promotions are a big reason why people go back to school. They start off even if you think, okay, you're going to get your bachelor's and then be done because school is just not your thing, you might get into a career where you really want to get promoted. You want the big house, you want the corner office with the beautiful view overlooking the city. You want to be able to go on vacations, right? You might want to start a family. I love to travel the world, right? So I want to be able to fund that. You're going to need a higher level of education. There are lots of jobs out there that build in their promotion system that you need a higher level of education to even apply to get promoted. So I know that's the case with the university I work at and many other colleges around the nation. It's a very typical thing that if you want to even apply to the next level of professorship, you need to have a higher level of education. You need to have at least so many courses in a doctoral degree. You need to show them that you deserve more pay. Okay, so that is most of the time when you get a master's degree. There are very few jobs that actually require a master's degree to get your foot in the door. But again, be open to it. Be open to the possibility of maybe one day getting a master's degree. Okay, so what's next? We've covered 4 of the 5. We have our certificate, we have our associate's degree, we have our bachelor's degree, we have our master's degree. There's only one left, and that's going to be our doctoral degree. That is the highest degree that anyone anywhere in the world can get, a doctoral degree. Okay, so please bear with me if you are just one of those students that hate school, which honestly I cannot fathom that, but it's okay. If that's you, it's okay. It's not for everyone. But why would you ever consider going to doctoral college, right? Why would you want that degree? Well, if you want to be a doctor, it makes sense. You have to get a doctorate degree, right? If you want to be a lawyer, that was my desire, right? That was my chosen profession. That was the direction I went. You have to have a doctoral degree. If you want to become a PhD, right, which is a doctoral degree in philosophy, you need a doctoral degree. If you want to be able to say that you're maybe one of the 2% of Americans that have a doctoral degree, you're gonna need a doctoral degree. There's a lot of different reasons, right? Maybe you're just an overachiever like myself and you just really want to just have the most amount of knowledge that you can have, and you just, honestly, if there was something higher, I would have done it. I would have done it already. I've started working backwards. So I earned my doctoral degree in law in 2019, and there was nowhere else for me to go. Like, there is, again, no higher level of education. So I went backwards. So I have done 3 full-time semesters in my master's degree. I was working on a master's in creative writing, but there's just nowhere higher to go. So if you want a career as a doctor or a lawyer, or if you want to become a professor and have maybe you want tenure, who doesn't? You're gonna need a doctoral degree. Now, there are some jobs, like a doctor, like a lawyer, if you want to be the dean of a school, right? You're gonna need to have a doctoral degree. That is entry level. You can't even be considered to work at a hospital as a medical doctor if you don't have a medical school degree, right? Which is a doctoral degree in medicine. So it's MD. The M is for medicine, the D is for a doctorate's degree. So if you have a doctoral degree, I am a JD, which means I have a doctoral degree in jurisprudence, which is a fancy Latin word for law. Again, a PhD is a doctoral degree in philosophy. Don't let that confuse you. A lot of people will say that they have a PhD, or you might see on a job application that it will ask you if you have a PhD. It is a very commonly used way of just saying, do you have a doctoral degree? The same as you can just kind of say, talk about a car, but it's really a van or a truck or a compact car, right? A car is an automobile, is transportation. A PhD is often used the exact same way to just refer to someone that has a doctoral degree. Okay, so again, we have five levels of education post high school. Okay, so we have a certificate, an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a doctoral degree. 5 levels of education, and we want to keep these in mind before we start making our career decision, right? So if you're young and you think you have this career that you really want to do, really think it through. And we're going to get into how to choose a career in a later video and why career research is so important. But you need to keep in mind the levels of education. Again, you don't want to invest 4 years and $12,000, let's say, into a degree that you didn't necessarily need, and now it's set you back 4 years. And of course, I'm a huge proponent of education. I would never think of education as a waste of time or money, but if you don't have the time and you don't have the money, you could possibly invest those resources differently. Okay, so jot down the 5, keep them in mind, and have them handy for the upcoming videos when we talk about career research. Thank you for joining me today to learn about the 5 levels of education. I hope you have a really great day in class.